Hey, everybody, and welcome to my webinar about how to be a better seller by utilizing data of your sales materials. Now, I had a webinar about a month ago, and I got some feedback that I started too quickly, and people hadn't had time to get on board, so to speak. So not everybody had time to get onto the stream. So I figured today I'm just going to spend about a minute just chatting here before I really get into the topic. And as usual, I haven't really planned what to talk about while I'm just chatting. So while we're waiting for everybody to join, and it's not a massive amount of hundreds of people, I was thinking I'd tell you a little bit about this room that I'm in. And apologies for the echo. We don't have enough soundproofing here yet. But I'm in this tiny meeting room in our office. And one of the things that we try to do here at Salesframe is that each employee, when they join the company, they get to choose a poster for themselves. And actually, we've got our whole office filled with these posters. And the point of that little tradition is that everybody leaves their mark. Even if you leave the company someday, and definitely there have been people who've left Salesframe at some point, we still have their poster on the wall. So it's kind of nice. This one, for example, it's chosen by Alexi Lind, who was an intern for us maybe 3-4 years ago. But honestly, I think it's the best poster we have. It's better than the one I chose, which I'm not showing you guys. Anyway, I think that's a minute of waffle. So now let's get into the topic. So again, for those of you who were wondering why is Lauri talking about posters, just spending some time to make sure everybody could join. Today, we're talking about how you could actually be a better salesperson by utilizing the data that your sales materials can generate. The audience of today's webinar is mainly Salesframe users and some people who are quite aware of Salesframe anyway. So I'm not going to be spending too much time explaining and selling Salesframe, so to speak. I think that's probably a good thing for everybody here. Instead, I want to show you how you guys could actually really benefit from using the platform and or similar platforms, because there's some platforms that do similar types of things. But the point here is how we could really improve the way we work when we send material to customers. So I'm going to be actually showing mainly a slideshow today. There's just a couple other things we might be looking at from a demo-y perspective, but I think the demo side of this webinar will be probably somewhere around 25 seconds. Mainly, it's going to be some slides and a talking head, yours truly. So let's get started. All right. So screen share works. Nice. Really like StreamYard, by the way. Anyway, you know that feeling when you call your friend, or you call your husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, whatever, and they just say immediately, "Hey, I was just thinking about you." That's a really nice feeling, isn't it? And one of the themes of today's presentation, today's webinar, is how can we generate that feeling for you guys as salespeople when you call your clients? Because if your client's thinking about you right now, that's you know that you caught them at the right moment. You called them at the right moment. You had a meeting at the right moment, whatever. So it's a really nice feeling when you hear somebody say, regardless of whether it's your friend or whether it's a client, that, "Hey, I was just thinking about you." You know that the conversation that's following that sentence is going to be great. So how do we then know how to call at that right moment? I mean, obviously with our friends, we might not, but with clients, we could. And you probably guessed that you can do that a little bit with Salesframe, because we can tell you when you're on your customer's mind. So imagine if you could know when you were on your customer's mind. And I want you guys to think about all the potential moments in a sales cycle that you have. I know there's people here listening to this webinar who have a sales process of months or even years. And I know there's people listening to this webinar who have a sales cycle of a week or a day. It doesn't matter how long it is in calendar time. I want you to think about all the points where you email your clients, because there's quite a few usually. And those are all potential moments where you could be giving them something that gives you data. So let's look at that a little bit. I'm looking at this from my own perspective. Let's make this a little bigger so you guys can see what I'm presenting here. So if I'm looking at this from my own perspective of the way I sell, because I might be our CEO, but I still sell about 50% of my time. I've got 4 distinct phases where I send material to clients, and I think these might be similar for everybody here. So first of all, if you do prospecting, Salesframe's pretty damn great for that. You email customers usually quite a lot in the prospecting phase when you're trying to book meetings. So that's a definite moment where you could be sending material. You definitely email customers after meetings, but I also really hope most of you email customers before meetings, if for nothing else than for agenda reasons. And here's a new term for some of you, I'm pretty sure. Mid-game tactics. I think we all do them, but you just haven't given it a word. By mid-game tactics, I don't necessarily mean discovery, but it's messaging that you send to customers to remind them that you still exist. And I think we all kind of do that every now and then. When you haven't heard from a client in a couple of weeks, you send them a quick email, you send them something. We all have our own little mid-game tactics. We're going to be talking about that today. And obviously, probably everybody's favorite part, which is the offer. The offers are usually the ones that can actually generate the money at the end of the day. So that's definitely a moment where we probably email our clients. So in all of these moments, we could be using Salesframe. I know some of you probably are, but if you aren't, consider using it, because the main feature here that you could use for this specific, for all these moments, for all of those prospecting, before meetings, after meetings, etc., for all those moments, you could be sending something with Salesframe, not just a text-based email. You could be sending the customer material, but the key point here is you could also be sending a video greeting in every single one of those. So for those of you who don't remember, who don't know, even if you are a user, don't be ashamed if you can't remember. It's fine. If you send material with Salesframe, you can track how much time the customer spends on each and every material you have in what you sent. So for example, before this webinar, I sent everybody a memo site, which had a personal video greeting. It looked like this. Very interesting stare from me, I guess, in that. Sorry about that if that freaked you out. But anyway, it had a video greeting, had some slides. And I got some data on how much time you guys spent on that material. I can actually show you. So if we jump out of here for a moment and go into the webinar data, we can see that it's been opened 6 times. So not all of you opened it, only 6 of you did, but a total of almost 16 minutes was spent. And I can see that, okay, most people, they looked at the first slide and didn't scroll forward. But hey, the point here is I know that most of you didn't scroll further down. So if you're using Salesframe, you can track how much time spent on each and every material by your customers when you send material to them. And I think that's something that you could utilize in pretty much every single phase where you're sending emails to your clients. I do anyway, and I can tell you it has affected how well I sell. Because the more I'm informed, the better I am able to communicate with clients, obviously. So the more I know who's interested, who's not, I'm focusing on the right cases. And when I know what they're focusing on, when I know what they're reading, so since you know which material they're spending their time on, I'm able to focus on the right topics. And that's what I really want to talk about today. Like, how can you actually utilize, how can you create something in all of those phases? So again, what can we create in prospecting phases? What can we create in before meetings, after meetings, etc.? And what do we want to do with data that it generates? So we're literally going to be talking about that for pretty much the rest of the time. And this all comes from my own experience, because over the last 4 years, I think I've sent material with Salesframe over 4,000 times, if I remember the data correctly. And my open rate is somewhere around 50%. So if you've got a higher open rate than me, you're probably doing a better job than I am. But anyway, let's keep going so you guys get some benefit out of this. And this was a bit of a joke. I wanted to include this though. So basically the philosophy that I'm trying to instill here is of mind laying. I know the situation in the world isn't brilliant right now when it comes to talking about military stuff, but military comparisons are usually pretty good when it comes to sales. Sports is the other one. It shows how masculine sales is as an industry, unfortunately. But anyway, mind laying is a really good example of what you're trying to do here. So if you're thinking about all of those phases of the sales process, think about laying mines under your customer, your potential customer, so that every now and then they're going to step on those mines and you hear that explosion, you go take a look at the data. So basically what you're doing is this, that's a memo site going off. That's another one, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, thank you, Associated Press. I think I've used that that excuse long enough, or that example long enough. So anyway, here's how I use this. First of all, what do I do when actually let's not talk about this one first. Let's talk about prospecting, because I don't have a slide about that. When I'm prospecting, and I know all of you don't need to prospect. A lot of you get inbound meetings, and a lot of you might have your own sales development reps doing this for you. But some of you are sales development reps who are trying to book meetings. So when I'm prospecting and trying to get meetings, I use Salesframe's video greetings quite a lot, because it's a great way to have a phone call like pitch, verbally pitch what you're doing, but the customer can read it or view it at their own leisure. They don't need to pick up the phone at the right time. They can watch it whenever they can. And if you tell the customer, hey, I recorded a personal video for you on why you should meet us, it obligates them a little bit to open, because if somebody spent a couple minutes actually recording a personal video for you, you kind of get this feeling of sense of obligation to open it. So I literally usually just send my own pitch for whoever I'm trying to meet via video. Maybe I have a couple slides underneath, but that's what I do when I'm prospecting. If you have any questions on that, I'd love to hear that, because obviously I'm happy to help. But anyway, if we move forward and look at what's actually on the screen right now, it's what I send pre-meeting. So I always send something to customers before a first meeting. And by first meeting, I mean the first time I'm meeting this person. These days, most of my first meetings are online. Back in the day, it was about 50-50 face-to-face versus online. Now it's literally 100% online. So there's a chance I might close clients without ever meeting them face-to-face. And even if you do meet your clients face-to-face, sending something pre-meeting is very important. First of all, your audience is probably going to be only your main contact. So if you're sending something, your main contact is probably going to be opening this only. They're not going to be sharing it internally, or it's unlikely that they will. And I usually include a maximum of 4 slides. Very simple to read slides, very quick to read slides, because I assume that if you've never met me before, you don't have that much energy to research me beforehand. So I'm just going to give you 4 slides about what we are, and I hope you guys have that kind of 4 slide set that you can send to clients to explain what you guys are and what you do. And that'll give them something. But I always focus on the intro video, and I tell the client that this is an agenda, so that they would open it. Like, hey, here's an agenda of what we're going to go through. But in actual reality, I spend about 15 seconds on agenda when I'm recording the video. And I actually spend 30 seconds or even a minute pitching us. I try to find the simplest benefit and simplest feature plus benefit that we have in the tool. And I explain that in the first 30 to 60 seconds, so that when the customer's coming into the meeting, they already have a bit of an idea of what they're going to see. It doesn't matter if they've read your website or everything else. People forget so easily, and they have a million meetings in their calendars. So, spelling it out for them crystal clear right before a meeting is really important. And I always try to ask a question at the end of my video. My questions are usually pretty simple, but I just want them to be in this mindset of, I'm basically trying to break the ice by asking that question, because sometimes when I've asked a good question from a client on my video and the client has watched it, they start the meeting by answering my question. I don't even need to break the ice, really. The video broke the ice, and now they're just coming right in and explaining, hey, Lauri, you asked me about this, so I want to tell you about our sales organization. Obviously, not all of you are selling to sales organizations. I am. But asking a question that in a video that you're sending to a client pre-meeting is very useful. The data you get out of this, the most important thing you get out of a pre-meeting memo site is literally, did they open it and take a glance at the material? The most important thing is that they watch the video. So if you can see from the data that they watch the video, you probably got a smoother meeting coming up because the client's already warmed up a little bit. I usually deliver these to the client about 2 hours before a meeting. Not even 24, literally 2 hours before a meeting. so that it stays on their mind. And some of them don't have time in those 2 hours to open it, but that's the risk I take. You guys can maybe find your own perfect time slot on when to send these. But I really do suggest you send these to clients before meetings, because it will give them the feeling that they kind of know you already, if nothing else. Anyway, the next phase is post-meeting. Now, obviously, this could be post-first meeting or post any meeting, so after any meeting with a client. I always recommend sending a recap video greeting with recap materials to clients. Now, if you're lazy, you can obviously just send materials if you're a bit afraid of being on video. And I understand that not all of us want to be on video, but if at all possible, send a video with the materials you're recapping your meeting with. And remember that your audience this time might not just be the people you met. There might be other people watching this down the road. Your main decision maker might be forwarding this to someone else. Actually, you kind of want them to, right? You want them to forward that. So the video is a really great way of introducing yourself to the people you've never met before. Now, obviously, you don't know for sure, so you don't want to say, hi, in case you haven't met me, I'm this and this. You don't need to say that. Your name is visible on the memo site. But if you record a good video, if you perform well, so to speak, your customers' other stakeholders who are watching this, even if they haven't met you, they'll also get a good feeling about you. And they'll also be motivated to read whatever materials you have included there as well. And on the video, I usually try to focus on 1 or 2 problems that the customer has said themselves. And I basically recap those problems in my own words. It's very simple stuff. This is probably what you guys do on email anyway. But I try to recap those problems in my own words and then toss in our main benefits that solve those problems. And always, 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 I try to make sure that I've got a next call booked. So I remind them when we have the next call. Also, just in case maybe one of those random stakeholders who might open this video, so those other people, the larger audience, in case they want to join. They'll know that, hey, on June 17th, we've got our following meeting. So, maybe if you're interested, you might want to come along. But one of the key points here as well, I know I'm just tossing key points left and right. So if somebody's taking notes, I'm absolutely sorry. But one of the key points here is the video shortens your email. Don't send long emails. So I've been preaching about this for years, but I hate it when I'm a CEO at least. So that means that I do get people selling to me on a weekly or even daily basis. And I hate it when I get an email that's longer than, I don't know, let's do this for emphasis. That's longer than this. That fits on this. I know it's not on. Now it's on. But when salespeople send me emails that don't fit on a cell phone screen and I need to scroll down, and worst case, it's multiple screenfuls of text, basically gives me the feeling that you can't articulate what you're doing. So you need to write paragraph after paragraph after paragraph. Same thing when you're sending something pre-meeting or post-meeting or offers, etc. If you need to write something really long, the person who's opening that email might sigh and say to themselves, I'll read this later. But maybe their email now has it as in read state, so it's not unread anymore. So maybe your customer's never going to read that again because it's not pinging in their inbox anymore because it's not unread anymore. So if you have a short email, there's a chance they're going to read it at that moment. And if in that moment you have a video greeting, a link to materials. So the email is short, but there's a link to materials. You can then direct them there. And now, since you've got a video, you can say quite a lot in a couple minutes, which would have made your email very long. But now, since it's a video, they might have energy to watch it. And studies actually do indicate that people are much more willing to watch 1 or 2 minutes of video versus reading several paragraphs of email or text. It's one reason why webinars sometimes work. I don't know if a 37-minute webinar is going to work, but you get my point. So yeah, one of the reasons why you want to send video greetings and material with Salesframe is to shorten the emails you send, obviously to affect them and be memorable with the video, obviously to get data. But yeah, guess that's enough of that. Let's move on. So I very beautifully wrote down WTF, our mid-game tactics. But in case you're wondering, since it's already been 10 minutes, by mid-game tactics, I mean anything you send to clients during your sales process where you're basically reminding them that you exist. I'm sure all of our sales directors and our bosses would love us that if we never had to do this, because our customers always remember and are always, just moving forward on their own with their own momentum towards an inevitable close. But the fact of the matter is, in quite a lot of cases, you got to remind them that you still exist. And that's what mid-game tactics are for. First of all, I try to mitigate the need for these by always having something in the calendar agreed with the client. So I always try to have a next call, next meeting, whatever in the calendar. But there might be a long gap between those calls. Sometimes it can be months. So I send mid-game tactic messages just to remind that I still exist. And I usually have noticed that my audience in these messages are just my main contact. So other stakeholders are very rarely receiving these. So my main contact is rarely forwarding them. But what I try to make these, like my first philosophy is just to try to turn these into little postcards. Like, hey, I saw something and it reminded me of you. Hey, how are things going? And then after asking that, I then explain something new that's going on with us. Or it's immediately about a new feature or a new benefit or something like that might help with the problems that the customer has indicated they have. Another good excuse is if your company is organizing an event. I know in most companies, for most salespeople, events are the marketing team's problem, right? But if you personally take the time to invite your main contact to a webinar or a live event or an exhibition or something, there's a much higher likelihood that they'll come over. And obviously, maybe your marketing might still be doing that in your name. But what if you're doing it with a personal video? What if you're attending that event yourself and you want to talk to this client there? Personal video about that might be damn great. What do you then have as content for that? Maybe have the invite for the event or the event's website or something like that. You can embed links into Salesframe memo sites, right? You can. So you can do it yourself as well. So by the way, if that's a question anybody wants to ask me, feel free how to do that. But yeah, you can do things like that just to remind them that you still exist. And I try to have a little bit of fun with this. I was on vacation in Portugal about a month ago. And just sometimes something reminded me of some potential clients. I almost immediately sent them videos about that. Now, my travel companions might not have liked that. Might have not have been proper vacation. But did get a lot of positive feedback and, managed to warm up the conversation a little bit more, have some, help generate a better relationship with the person I'm trying to sell to. So for mid-game tactics, the video especially is really important. For pre-meeting, post-meeting, the materials are very important as well. But in mid-game, the material isn't as important. The video is the main thing. All right, let's move on. How about offers then? So obviously, I think this is the one that most of us are using Salesframe for. And this is probably the most common example of sending content with Salesframe. So a lot of salespeople use Salesframe to send offers to their clients. Good stuff. Keep going. Please do that. But I showed you the other three examples because obviously I think there's a lot of benefit in using Salesframe to send materials in other phases of the sales process. But anyway, let's talk about offers. Offers most likely will be viewed by more than just your main contacts. Your main contact might be a C-level decision maker, but there's usually other C-level decision makers in a company, and they might be sitting in some meeting room discussing your offer. Doesn't matter what level they're at. They might be just directors or even managers. It doesn't matter. But the point is, they might make the decision via committee. So every time you send an offer, consider using Salesframe because you can include a video. You get a chance to be talking to that committee. Yes, you might be invited to discuss and present your offer live or online, but they're still not going to be talking about it point blank when you're in the room. So once you get out of the room, you've lost your chance to affect the conversation. But if you have a video greeting in there, you still have a little bit more of a chance to stand out from the other offers they're viewing. This is the guy or girl who went through the trouble of recording a really good video about this topic. So don't just send a PDF with your pricing, or even if you do different types of offers, I'm not going to judge. Include a video in there. And from my own personal perspective, I try to make sure that I actually recap our offers into multiple slides. So I don't send a one-page PDF. I try to do it in multiple slides so that then I could see which slide the customer spent their time on. And with offers, this is super important, because for us, for example, there's about 3-4 components to an offer. There's the features and benefits, which I've tried to align with the features and benefits that the client needs and problems that they have. There's the references. So, stories, maybe a couple videos or a couple case studies or something like that. Maybe even contact information of some of our other clients to convince them that, hey, we have other clients, so maybe you could trust us too. But obviously there is the pricing and there is the implementation plan. Now, for some of you, you might not have all of these in an offer, but you're most definitely going to have a price. And most of you will have some kind of schedule or plan, rollout, implementation, whatever. So if you have these on separate slides, you can then see which part did they actually spend their time on. Because there's a big difference if your client is spending 20 seconds on price, but 20 minutes on rollout plan. What do you follow up with in this situation? I think you guys already know. Like, if you can see that the one that they're looking at for a long time is the rollout plan, timeline, whatever, that's where all their questions are going to be on. They might be looking at your references more than anything. That's a good thing. But you might still want to give them a call and ask, hey, would you like the contact information of one of our clients? Want to talk to them directly? You're calling with the right context. You're talking about the right... I'm already skipping ahead. But yeah, you get my point. If you separate them on different contents, you can actually see how you should follow up. So yeah, even if you don't separate them and you have a one-pager, in that case, I would try to still add more than just the one-page offer you have. So if nothing else, maybe some YouTube material or a link to your website, something like that. It's still better than just the one-pager. But either way, the video is the most important thing, and then separating your offer into multiple contents so that you can see the data. Those are very important. Okay, I think I just spent 18 minutes on this stuff. So basically talking about sending and at what point should we send. We haven't talked really that much about how you could be a better seller. Well, yes, in a way we have, because first of all, having video at every single phase of the process, just sending it, forget the data, but just sending the video at every single phase of the sales process means you're standing out from your competition. You're looking super professional, especially if you know your stuff, and your face is probably more familiar to them. Your voice is probably more familiar to your customer. So they feel like they know you a little bit, especially if you're able to toss a joke in there or something like that. But yeah, the sending is already important. And maybe I'm just tossing so many things here, but maybe you're also the person who sends really short emails that are easy to read instead of the other salesperson who sends Bible length, horrible, mega long emails. Might make you stand out from the crowd. So those are already the benefits of what we've discussed. But now let's talk about utilizing the data properly. So I know I've already mentioned this in between different sentences I've already gone through, but there's two ways I mainly utilize the data. So the first one is timing. You get an email notification when a Salesframe memo site is opened. So there's a clock ticking at that moment. Like, okay, they're reading it now. I'm on their minds right now. But a key point here to distinguish is, are they opening it right before a meeting you're about to have or right after a meeting you just had? If they are, then there's not really too much to react on. Because if you just talk to somebody, they opened your material and then you call them, hey, I noticed you watched my material. They're just going to be confused why you're calling, because obviously they're expected to look at the material after a meeting. But if they open the material at a more random time slot, so not a day before a meeting or not a day after a meeting, but let's say you've got a month's gap between calls and they're opening it 2 weeks right in the middle. Now that's something. They might be having an internal meeting where they're discussing you. And that's the reason why they brought it up. There might be a lot of excuses why they're opening that. They might just have thought of whatever you guys are offering and they're discussing it. Now you know they are. So obviously, here's a really good time to follow up because you know you're on their minds. You don't need to tell them you know when you follow up, by the way. You don't need to say, hey, I noticed you looked at my data. You can just happen to call accidentally. You just timed it really well. You're a Jedi. So I'm a massive Star Wars nerd, by the way. Anyway, got a bit sidetracked there. But yeah, that helps you with your timing. If they open it at a random time and you get data on that. And I'll give you one more example. A couple months ago, well, just about a month ago, on a Friday at 9 p.m., I get 4 open notifications from the same link. So 4 different people from the same customer at 9 p.m. on a Friday were looking at my material. Now, that could be anything, but sent my main contact a quick email, a 1-sentence email saying, stop working, it's Friday. And I get an email back in 5 minutes saying, oh, we're out drinking with the management team, and I wanted to tell them all how cool Salesframe is. So I wanted to show them this. So basically, the whole management team had opened my link at a bar on a Friday evening. That's a pretty good sign. But it also enabled this short interaction of me being able to show them that, hey, you're on my mind on Friday as well. But anyway, that's of course me showing my cards to the client by showing that I know you're watching this. But anyway, let's move on. So timing is one thing. And apologies if you thought this was half an hour. This is on purpose, 40 minutes. The last point here is how to use the context. So what material did they spend their time on? And I obviously talked about this a little bit when we were talking about offers already. But just to recap, if you've built your memo sites very well, you'll be able to distinguish very clearly what they spent their time on. And that gives you the opportunity of following up with the right context, following up on the right topic. They were checking the pricing. You can call them and ask, hey, I was wondering if you had any questions about the pricing, or I was wondering if you had any questions about the schedule, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you can call at the right time because, they just opened it. And those really will make you stand out from the competition, not only because they think you might be very professional, but because you just happen to always be there. You're the one they ask their stupid questions from, so to speak. You're just there. The salesperson's so easy. He's always available. She's always available. All those kind of things. So gives you some heads up on that. So just as a summary, videos help you show you're human, and this is super critical right now. One of our values here at Salesframe is to humanize sales, and that can mean a lot of things. And one of the things it means is showing to civilians that sellers are humans, and that'll help you stand out. Reacting at the right time, staying on. So when you're already on their minds, and helping you be on their mind even more, just shows how super professional you are. You're always ready to go. You're always right there. You somehow magically are timing everything right, Jedi, something like that. And then obviously improving on that timing is the reacting on the right context. So being super professional. As I said. So basically, okay, this sentence is awfully formulated, but basically what I'm trying to say here is that I'd like salespeople, regardless of whether they're using Salesframe or not, I'd like them to leave clients with a feeling that they wished every salesperson was like you. You're easy to talk to. You're super friendly. I can put a face to the name, timing everything right, always ready there to answer questions, all that kind of stuff. Salespeople aren't always talked about in the best of light. If Salesframe can help you guys improve the reputation of salespeople overall, absolutely awesome. So anyway, that's all I had for content today. I'm willing to stay on the line if you guys have any questions, but I need to make sure I can actually see those questions. So give me a second because I can't find any place. Maybe there aren't any, so it's also possible. But let's see if I can find some. Otherwise, I'm just going to sit here quietly and thumbs or something. Let's check. No questions. Very quiet chat. Oh, there's the chat as well. Oh, okay. Well, anyway, I'll be here for a little while longer in case you still want to ask me something. If not, then I'm just going to sit here very uncomfortably. But hey, thank you very much for being here. If you have any questions you don't want to ask publicly, then feel free to send me an email. My email address is lauri.ruhala@salesframe.com. I'll actually answer. Or actually, hey, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if nothing else. Nope. No question. What a great webinar, if I do say so myself. I should get a co-host so this part doesn't feel so awkward. All right, let's call it. Hey, thanks for joining. See you later. Have a good day.